17-time champion at some point down the road in his illustrious career. WWE believed at that point in time they had signed the WrestleMania main event for at least the next 5 years from 2002 onward. In July of that year, John Cena debuted. I saw John Cena in one of his first ever house show matches, and I was really impressed by John Cena. That was a little bit after they brought him in. After having been known as the prototype in OVW, was impressed in the first match of the SmackDown house show that I had attended, which was main evented by Edge and Kurt Angle on that night. That was almost about 7 or 8 years after I had attended my first wrestling show, because wrestling doesn't come around these parts very often. But, you know, what a difference 6 or 8 years made, between 6 and 8 years made. You know, seeing Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker take on Mick Foley and Goldust in that incredible main event, and then going from that to seeing wrestlers like John Cena, Batista as upstart talent, you just knew these guys had the talent. And I really believe that even though it hasn't happened, and even though John Cena's gone mainstream, it's pretty much set in stone that we are looking at the next future 16-time world champion. He may not go as far to break the record of Ric Flair, because I know that would be a slap in the face of everything Ric Flair has accomplished throughout his illustrious career, wrestling longer than anybody has in the wrestling industry, but he will go at least as far as to tie the record of Ric Flair, with Ric Flair having 16 title victories and John Cena respectively having 16 title victories. I say this because Triple H said something really interesting on an interview for .com's Bite This show on Wednesday nights back in the day. He said that he thought he would stop probably at about 15 or 16 title reigns out of respect to Ric Flair. I thought if I can remember correctly, I think he said about 15 times he would stop at, because he didn't want to tie nor break the record of Ric Flair, and I had a lot of respect from Triple H coming away from that interview on .com that night, because a lot of people wouldn't have gone as far or had the balls to even say what Triple H did. So I think that's going to pretty much be the mindset WWE will have for the next generation and generations that will come long after this one. You know, they're going to allow people to probably tie the record of Ric Flair, but never beat it. So I think that somebody saying that John Cena is going to be a 17-time champion down the road, I think that is merely just drawing a conclusion and, just hiding away from the fact that Ric Flair could be the greatest, arguably the greatest wrestler of all time. And if you ask me my opinion, what my perspective is and where I stand on who is the greatest wrestler of all time, if Ric Flair is not the greatest wrestler of all time, I really don't know who is. And I'm not just saying this because of the amazing match he had with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 24 back in 2008, and because Shawn Michaels was my favorite wrestler as a kid. I still have that Shawn Michaels foam finger from my first WWF show on November 5th of 1996. It's an amazing piece of merchandise which I've never let go of nor parted with. The thing is, Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair did have a great match, but I think Ric Flair was never one of, and honestly, Ric Flair was never my favorite wrestler. But when I look back on all his career highlights, everything that he's accomplished after having almost 40 plus years in the wrestling industry, even going on further, beyond WWE, having his last match with Shawn Michaels, doing stuff for Ring of Honor and TNA, I think I have to agree with a lot of people, and by saying that, it would just be a slap in the face of Ric Flair and his legacy if you gave that honor to someone like John Cena, even if you went as far as to give him a 16th title reign and to tie the record, even have him getting to that point of tying the record of Ric Flair, not even having surpassed the record of Ric Flair with 17, 18, however many title reigns you're wanting to talk about John Cena possibly reaching in his illustrious career. I said, at 15, this is ridiculous. John Cena does not need to be a 15-time champion. The other 14 times he's been champion, I'm sufficient enough with that. I'm happy enough having said that John Cena wins the title within 3 weeks and loses it, wins it back within 3 weeks after having lost it, and that kind of pattern repeats itself for forever and felt like it's repeated itself for forever. I think there's always room for a feeling of novelty in professional wrestling, and we don't need to see this consistent thing of how history's always had a habit of repeating itself with whoever your guy is, whoever your go-to man is in the wrestling industry. And obviously that distinction and responsibility has been put on the shoulders of John Cena, either John Cena or Randy Orton, and not so much Randy Orton now with his role now after having joined the Wyatt family recently on SmackDown Live, saying if you can't beat him, join him. Now, I'm still hoping that Randy Orton's just playing psychological mind games with Bray Wyatt, as he's done so many people like Seth Rollins, I.E. for you, I.E. as an example for you in the past, where he led the authority on to believe that he was still very much in alignment and agreement with the Authority. And when Seth Rollins was in the right place at the right time, Randy Orton just snapped. And we could be looking at that for the future of Bray Wyatt, because Randy Orton's been unable to win that game of one-upmanship against Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family, so he could be trying to probably win that by making the Wyatt family think, hey, he's on the same page as us after RKO and Kane. Randy Orton's been known to snap in the past and be very devious, so don't be surprised if Randy Orton pulls a fast one on the Wyatt family, which is what I'm hoping for. It's either been John Cena or Randy Orton, who's always been the go-to man in professional wrestling. And I think that, there's always room for a feeling of novelty. There's always these stars of tomorrow. And if WWE are seeing all these legends come back for one more match or to announce their retirement, go in the Hall of Fame, whatever, there's always room to create new talents, whether it be Bray Wyatt, Dolph Ziggler, whether it be Daniel Bryan, whoever you're trying to push at whatever given time. The thing is, there's always going to be room for a feeling of novelty, and not seeing the same guy like John Cena, who really needs to move over. He's had his time in the spotlight. He's been in a lot of main events, and he's still being booked in these main events, and I respect that about John Cena. But the thing is, it's always been John Cena winning the title, losing it, winning it back within 3 weeks, winning the title, losing it, winning it back within 3 weeks, and that's always had a way of repeating itself, and it doesn't need to be happening for John Cena, especially with this overflow of talent that's coming to the WWE. And I often have wondered on times, what would Ric Flair feel or have to say about John Cena being a 16-time champion? He's even had the opportunity to team with John Cena throughout his legendary career, and he obviously has a first-hand account of who John Cena is as an everyday individual. And obviously what he would say if you were to ask him, if you were the everyday wrestling fan and you went up to Ric Flair and said, hey, Ric Flair, what's your opinion on John Cena? He'd probably say that John Cena is a hard worker. He's the first one in the building every day. He's the last one to leave the building every day. That's probably what he would say. But the thing is, I really wonder deep down in his heart, how does Ric Flair really feel about John Cena being the man in 2016? And the conversation being at the all-time high of how John Cena now is going to be that 16-time champion. I've often wondered, how Ric Flair feels about John Cena being given that distinction of being the man when there are so many other candidates who are in line or should be given that opportunity, rather, to be that 16-time champion. I wonder how he feels about it. He's commented on it in interviews for WWE.com and their network, and he's been very honest with his opinion about John Cena. He's held nothing back, and I'm sure that his daughter Charlotte and the other Flair family members feel the same way about that record being broken. They're probably going to tell you, that record doesn't deserve to be broken, but if there is a man to do it, it's got to be John Cena. Now, to be honest with you, John Cena is not my odds-on favorite to be a 16-time champion. I would prefer anybody to be a 16-time champion, even Triple H, over John Cena, because I've grown very quickly tired of John Cena being a champion over and over again and having seen history repeat itself for at least 500-600 times. We don't want to see that as wrestling fans. We want to get to a point of reprieve. We want a reason to stand up and give somebody a standing ovation, as we did for people like Daniel Bryan, and even further back like Shawn Michaels, Arn Anderson, Sting, Vader, Mick Foley, all these legends who have touched our hearts in some of the most incredible ways. And I think that John Cena has touched our hearts, but not as incredibly as people like Shawn Michaels, Triple H, The Undertaker, Mick Foley have obviously done. I mean, when you're thrown off the top of a Hell in a Cell like Mick Foley was, when you've had so many victories, more victories than you've had losses in the win column of your career like The Undertaker's had, and had such an illustrious win streak at WrestleMania, only broken just 2 years ago, at WrestleMania 30 for the 30th anniversary, for the sake of celebrating the 30th anniversary of WrestleMania. I mean, you have a long way to go to reach those kind of accomplishments and have those accolades given to you. John Cena still has a very long way to go. And the thing is, what's funny about this conversation about Cena being a 16-time champion is nobody really thinks about, what is there left for John Cena to do. Everybody says John Cena's done it all. Nobody ever thinks about what there's left for John Cena to do. John Cena has never won 3 Royal Rumbles. That's one thing he's never done. He's never won a King of the Ring. He's never been Intercontinental Champion. There are a lot of things John Cena still has to do, not to mention there are a number of legends who John Cena still has to work with. That match between Sting and John Cena, which I know probably will never happen, still has to happen. John Cena probably in rematches with Randy Orton. John Cena in rematches with Brock Lesnar. John Cena and Goldberg. John Cena and The Undertaker. I mean, the conversation for years always was the possibility and probability of John Cena being the man to retire The Undertaker, and what would have been The Undertaker's final match, which was supposed to have happened for WrestleMania 30, but they gave that honor to Brock Lesnar to break the streak of The Undertaker at WrestleMania 30, and if not Brock Lesnar, it probably would have been John Cena. That doesn't mean that John Cena wasn't thought of by WWE Creative to be the man, because there wasn't really much going on for Cena at WrestleMania 30, because, they put him in a match with Bray Wyatt, and you obviously could determine whether or not there was a lot happening for John Cena. So why put him in a match with Bray Wyatt when you could have put him in a match with The Undertaker and substituted it very easily? People shy away from the conversation of there being so much still left for John Cena out there to do, but there is a lot for John Cena to do. I think they're just drawing another conclusion by saying that there's still nothing for John Cena to do, but there is still a lot for Cena to do. Some of the things I mentioned, of course, winning a third Royal Rumble, etching his name in the history books of being one of few individuals who have done that, like Stone Cold Steve Austin have done before in the past. So many people. There's so many things that John Cena still has to do. Intercontinental title wins, King of the Ring title wins, so many legends left to create with. And then there's that conversation of, is AJ Styles the man who John Cena should beat? There's always that conversation of who John Cena should beat to become a 16-time champion. Should it be someone like an AJ Styles, a Daniel Bryan, or should it be somebody like a Sting or Rick Goldberg? There are so many names you can think of in these fantasy warfare matches that people have talked about for years. John Cena and Goldberg is one. John Cena and The Undertaker is another one. John Cena and The Rock 3 has even been thrown into the conversation. I preferably, from where I stand on this one,